What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. Today's episode is going to be brought to you by Mystery Ranch, built for the mission. And if you haven't been rocking a Mystery Ranch Fireline pack for the entirety of your career, well, that sucks to be you, dog, because your back probably hurts and your shoulders probably hurt and your knees and all that other stuff probably hurts like hell. But they make, in addition to arguably the most well-built, the most comfortable, and the best warranty in the game fire packs, they make a ton of other load-bearing essentials. What that might be, you might ask? Well, if you're an outdoorsman or outdoors woman, an outdoors person, they make everything you could possibly ever need, whether it's for travel, backpacking, hunting, LEOs out there, you name it, they make a pack for it. In fact, I'm staring at two packs right now, and it is going to be, one of them is going to be the Mystery Ranch Assault 21 in Wildfire Black and the Mystery Ranch 3-way briefcase in Wildfire Black. Now, why am I mentioning these two specific packs? Well, that's because a portion of the proceeds from sales of these packs are directly funding the Backbone series. And if you don't know what that is, well, I highly suggest going over to www.mysteryranch and checking out the Backbone series. And speaking of that, you have an opportunity to win one of these Backbone series, Mystery Ranch Backbone series grants. You got $1,000 up on the line for you to do some professional development, whether it's the EMT class that you've wanted or some S courses, or hell, even paying rent if you've already paid for your, if you've already paid for your tuition. Hell, that might go pretty far as paying rent. $1,000 is a lot of money on the line. To enter, well, go over to www.mysteryranch.com and check out the Backbone series. And if you're telling the story about Wildland Fire, well, now you got an opportunity to win one of these $1,000 Mystery Ranch Backbone series grants. So once again, go over to www.mysteryranch.com and check out the Backbone series. The Anchor Point Podcast is also going to be brought to you by our premier coffee sponsor, and that's going to be none other than Hot Shot Brewery. It's kick-ass coffee for a kick-ass cause, and a portion of the proceeds will always go back to the Wildland Firefighter Foundation. But in addition to kick-ass coffee for kick-ass causes, they also make a plethora of other interesting stuff, like all the tools of the trade to get your morning started off right, and a ton of Wildland Firefighter themed apparel. So go over to www.hotshotbrewing.com and check it out. And while you're at it, go over there and check out some of the Anchor Point exclusives that's over there. Yeah, if you're looking for one of those Do-Rad Stuff posters or one of the Band of Brothers shirts or one of the Fire Fiend shirts, well, we have it all located over there. It's kind of like our flagship. So if you want to get some exclusives, go over to www.hotshotbrewing.com and check it out. The Anchor Point Podcast would also like to give a quick little shout out to our buddy Booze over at the ASS Movement. And if you don't know what that is, well, it's an acronym and it stands for the Anti-Service Shitting Movement. And if you're like me, well, you absolutely hate a surface shitter. It's a problem that needs to get buried. See what I did there? But it is spreading the good word about burying your turds. So if you want to find out more, go over to www.thefirewild.com and check out the ASS Movement, where you can get 10% off your entire order of the finest poo-bearing propaganda in the entire world by using the code AnchorPointAS10 at checkout. So once again, go over to www.thefirewild.com and check out the ASS Movement. The Anchor Point Podcast is also going to be brought to you by the American Wildfire Experience, also known as the Smokey Generation, also known as the AWE. And if you don't know what that is, go over to www.wildfire-experience.org and check it out, because it is a collection of over 100, now 200 stories about wildland firefighting from across the world. Yeah, it's not just the American Wildfire Experience anymore. It is a global affair. And what better way to tell the story about the AWE than to have Bethany Hannah on the show today? So yeah, if you are familiar with the grants process, we're going to be announcing the 14 winners of the micro-grants for 2022. So if you want to go find out more, check it out and check out these stories and this oral history project that she's got going on, well, go over to www.wildfire-experience.org and check it out. Bethany, you have a kick-ass organization over there. Keep it up. views and opinions of this podcast do not reflect the views and opinions of the United States government, the Department of the Interior, the Department of Defense, the Department of Agriculture, the United States Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, or any private, municipal, county, or state firefighting organization, any law enforcement agency, any medical provider, or any contractor employed by any federal agency. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. Hope everybody's doing well, and I hope everybody's getting some recovery in before the rest of the season. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a pretty long haul, especially with Predictive Services basically throwing it out there that, well, we're going to have a 1,000-hour season, almost guaranteed. But there's no guarantees, but definitely prepared for it. But with that being said, I hope everybody's doing well and staying safe and staying savage and keeping their heads on a swivel out there. Anyways, with that being said, today on the show, we are going to, I'm actually really stoked for this episode. I've been trying to get Bethany Hanna on here for, like 3 years now. And finally, the stars have aligned and we are in the studio tonight, or today. It is actually Father's Day. And we are going to be talking all about the American Wildfire Experience. It's the AWE now. It's not just relegated to the United States anymore. So it's just the AWE. And we're going to be talking about the Smokey Generation. So the nonprofit side of the house, which is the AWE, and the storytelling project, which is the Smokey Generation. And we're also going to be announcing the 2022 Smokey Generation Micro-Grant recipients today on the show. And I am super pumped to have Bethany on the show for this. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce my good friend, Bethany Hanna. Welcome to the Anchor Point. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Anchor Point podcast. Today on the show, I've got my very good friend, Bethany Hanna, also known as the executive director and founder of AWE, the American Wildfire Experience, just AWE now. Gotcha. And the Smokey Generation. Bethany, how you doing?
Doing great. Really glad to be here.
Yeah. So tell us about yourself.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah. Okay. So I am the executive director of AWE, and I started it. It's a nonprofit organization. I started in 2017. It's something that I've been doing as a side project since then, but I'm moving into generating some funds to be able to go full time with it, hopefully very soon. So the American Wildfire Experience was started because I had this wonderful project called the Smokey Generation, which I launched as part of my master's thesis project. And I basically, for this project, I went around and gathered oral histories and stories from about 40 wildland firefighters. And for the academic side of things, I was analyzing the language they were using to describe the role of fire in the environment and the meanings and the values they put forward. Super academic, nerdy stuff. But as I gathered these stories, I put them on a website, smokeygeneration.com, and they began to resonate with the fire community. People loved hearing the stories from the old timers and the ability to watch a quick snippet about a fire that they had been on, or a fire maybe that they heard about. And I started realizing that, this is gold in terms of like history and connection. And I really enjoyed it. I find collecting these stories to be incredibly rewarding. And so I was sort of posting more and more content on social media, and I was getting emails from the smoke jumpers in Canada saying, hey, we're using these videos as part of our training, and old timers reaching out and saying, hey, that's my buddy. I haven't heard from him in like 50 years. Can I get his contact information? It's really, really exciting. And I thought, okay, what happens if I get hit by a bus? I don't want these to disappear. So I decided to start a nonprofit organization to sort of house the Smokey Generation, and then give me the opportunity to pursue some other projects and other, creative initiatives to help tell the story of wildland fire. So I created the American Wildfire Experience. And I did it. And shortly after I created the American Wildfire Experience, I was working on a digital storytelling project with Mystery Ranch. It was on the Thomas Fire. And I brought down some of my board members to Ojai. And we were going up to the Thomas Fire burn scar to do some drone footage. And we were talking and brainstorming. And one of my board members said, it'd be really cool if we could give money to cool people to do cool shit, and so they could keep doing it. And we came up with the idea of these Wildland Fire digital storytelling micro-grants. And we launched it, that we can give some money to people that are just doing a really good job telling the story of fire and just kind of shine a light on what they're doing, kick them a little bit of funds so that they can upgrade their camera lens or buy the software they've always wanted so they can kind of up the production value. Yeah. And the micro grants went international immediately. So
just like that, just right away.
Just like that. Yeah. Yeah. And so the name, the American Wildfire Experience, all of a sudden didn't feel quite right because we were all of a sudden like working on a global level. So that's why we're sort of transitioning away from the American Wildfire Experience and just sticking with AWE. So since then, we've issued 54 microgrants.
54.
So that's 54. So that's about $27,000 that we've issued as a tiny little organization. It's super remarkable. We've had microgrant winners from Portugal and South Africa and Australia and Belize and
it's been like
Argentina.
All over the world. It's crazy because it started off as just kind of relegated to the United States for a while there.
Well, United States and Canada was our initial run because Mystery Ranch has been a phenomenal supporter of the Smokey Generation and then moving into the American Wildfire Experience. And then one of our other sort of corporate supporters is WaterX.
Yeah,
and
WaterX pumps.
They make the Mark III's.
Everybody's favorite pump.
Yeah, everyone's favorite.
Well, like
pump,
old
right?
ones. The new ones are actually pretty damn good, but
no, yeah, they're an amazing organization. They have supported 4 of the microgrants every single year.
Oh, wow.
So initially we said WaterX will sponsor the 4 microgrants of Canadian winners because that's where they're located.
Yeah, they're out of,
and then
what is it? Not Vancouver. Are they out of Vancouver?
They're in Quebec.
Quebec. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But the next year we decided not to limit it to just the US and Canada. We started recognizing that the quality of storytelling that's happening all over the world around fire by fire practitioners is just remarkable. And we didn't want to limit it just by geographic area. There's a lot of voices that need to be heard. So,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the cool thing about the AWE and Smokey Generation is I think that it's very important as far as preserving legacy. It's one of those things where it's like you have these stories and these people are not going to be around forever. Obviously, we all have an expiration date on us, whether we like to believe that or not. And it's one of those things where you're preserving the legacy of those firefighters, but also preserving the memory of them and also preserving like the stories that they have. Because a lot of times the stuff that, like we were talking earlier about, like the stories about Stan Stewart or Ed Pulaski or Lance Honda, any of these legendary folks that are out there, these legendary hotshot soups or smoke jumpers or firefighters in general, they're all told like you and I are just talking about it and like over a beer. It's like mop up conversation, but you're holding it in one place. And I think that's something special. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's become, certainly the Smokey Generation has become a passion project. It really, I do have to say the name, the Smokey Generation, rubs a lot of people the wrong way. We're very careful to not associate ourselves with Smokey Bear. It's really a sort of a commentary on the culture of the Wildland Fire world. And that's really what we're capturing is the culture, these little pieces of the community that we all love. And, certainly sort of capturing the stories of some of these iconic figures, these legends,
that serves a greater purpose, right? It is not just honoring their legacy. And I do believe that honoring legacies is extraordinarily important. We should recognize people's contributions, but it's also about making sure the lessons that they've learned are passed on that we all don't have to keep making the same mistakes. And I find this really like that sort of idea, it's less about like operations and tactics, how not to, do some stupid thing on the line. It's more about those interpersonal connections, like, the human element of the fire world is the most beautiful thing and the hardest thing to navigate.
Oh, yeah.
So learning those leadership lessons and understanding how some of these sort of legends in the fire world navigated the interpersonal dynamics as they were working in the fire environment. It's really remarkable. And there's a lot that can be learned, not only from them, but from other people who've just, maybe never made it up to a hotshot superintendent level, but experienced some really remarkable things. Their stories are equally as valuable.
Oh, absolutely. And I think even not even just like the legendary old school, if you will, folks that are on the Smokey generation, but even the younger ones that have contributed to it, somebody who's maybe got like 4 or 5 years in the game. I mean, let me preface this with a good mentor of mine, Eric Newell. He once told me in academy, he's like, always be cognizant of what you say and what you do around a group of people, or just even single individuals. Like, just always be cognizant of what you do, because you'll never know who you'll affect later down the road, and you'll never know who they will become. With that being said, I think it's important that these younger the Smokey generation folks that are contributing, you never know where they're going to go or who they're going to become in their fire careers. And, they have just as much, relevance and leadership potential and lessons to be learned from, just as much as any other old school soup or anything like that. Any of these legendary figures, they might become legend. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would, I'm going to call out my mentor too. This is somebody who was a smoke jumper in 59, 60, and 61. And he, he went on to live an extraordinary life, but he only spent 3 years in the fire world. But those 3 years shaped how he approached the rest of his life. And this is somebody that went on to lead for a pharmaceutical company and the Stanford Medical Center. And, this remarkable individual has so much to offer, and has just been an extraordinary mentor to me. His stories are so important, but a lot of people would just write him off because he only spent 3 years in the fire world, and that's a huge mistake. And that's sort of one of the things that I am really passionate about communicating and conveying to other people is, even if you've only have 3 years, I only have 7 years in the operational world. And in that, it's been a long time since I've been on the line. But I have spent most of my career involved in the wildland fire community in some way, shape, or form, and feel like, the experiences that I've had and the people that I've met and the network that I've created are extraordinarily valuable. I'm not digging line anymore, but I am helping other people to share those stories. And so there's other ways to contribute, and there's other pieces, even if you've only spent a short time in the industry, that can help create an even richer culture. And even more leadership potential with other firefighters.
Oh yeah, that culture, preserving culture. I think that's also important too. I mean, we have a very unique culture too, and especially since we're already kind of, xenophobic, and we kind of don't really, trust outsiders, and we don't really, we embrace the silent professional kind of mentality. So we don't really have any other options. It's not like, like a Navy SEAL is going to write a book about. Well, Navy SEALs, they'll write books, right? That's how they become famous. But wildland firefighters, they won't do that stuff. Yeah. I don't think they will. Well, maybe a few, but handful. But anyways, I digress.
Well, yes. And there's also some agency restrictions on that that prevent people from doing that as employees.
The fear of reprisal is definitely very real. And that's probably one of the unique challenges for the contributors of AWE microgrants as well. I couldn't imagine that some of them, they want to contribute, but also a lot of people are probably apprehensive to contribute to the project just because of reprisal.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. So there's, so we've run into a couple of issues, and my stance is we want, this is a nonprofit organization, and we're going to create programming based on what will best support the community. It's up to the applicants to make sure that they're not violating any policies or ethics regulations. But we have run into a couple of issues where our microgrant winners, recipients find out later that the project that they proposed is in violation of ethics regulations or Code of Federal Regulations. And in one case, we gave back, or they gave back the money so that they wouldn't be in violation. Which is really sad to me because it's a very small amount, and our evaluation process is semi-blind. So we're not, as people are reviewing these projects, we're not considering what agency they're affiliated with in any way, shape, or form. So, one of the regulations is that as a federal employee, when you are a federal employee, you cannot receive compensation for writing. Or teaching. Photographer, there's nothing that says that you can't receive money for photography. And unfortunately, microgrants and scholarships are considered compensation. So you have to be careful. I know.
Yeah, I know. It's bizarre to me because
it just pisses me off. So in some cases, we've had microgrant winners who have been featured in the Washington office newsletter. Celebrating the fact that they won this award. And in other situations, we've had people that have had, the ethics office get after them and question them. So it's sort of a little bit of a mixed bag on how the agency, and which agencies I'm talking about, respond. So what I would say is that, certainly as a seasonal employee, if you're doing it off hours, you're not going to run into any issues if you're not employed by the agency at the time you're doing the project. And we leave a lot of flexibility in, we go up based on a fire year for the grants, not a fire season. So there is a lot of room to do things in the off season when you're not an official employee. So I encourage people to think outside the box when they're applying and conceptualizing what types of projects they're doing. Because I think it's important for, those stories to be told and be told from unique perspectives. And if you can do so without violating the agency policies, then I think you should. It's the same with the Backbone scholarships. We haven't talked about the Backbone scholarships, but this is, the Backbone series and scholarships were created by Luke at Mystery Ranch, and just a phenomenal opportunity, again, for voices to be heard. So the Backbone series is a series of essays that's featured on the Mystery Ranch website, written by Wildland firefighters and their partners, to sort of showcase what firefighters go through and what the fire environment looks like. And they range from essays that are like, what would I tell my 18-year-old self?
Go to school.
Would I do this again?
I wouldn't change anything I did.
To, issues about mental health or what have you. And, so that's the Backbone series. It's separate from the scholarship. Yeah. There are essays. There are the Backbone series contributors who have not received scholarships, for example. But then there's a scholarship portion, and these are funded right now predominantly through Mystery Ranch, through the sales of 2 special packs. There's a third one dropping this summer, so keep your eye out for that.
Yep, I can't wait for that one.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And then also the Moondust coffee table book. And we've issued over 12,000 Backbone scholarships, and we'll issue probably another 12,000 this year. So within 2 years, we'll have issued 24,000 or more in $1,000 scholarships to wildland firefighters and their partners at an international level. Again, it's a great, and it's not just for like going to college. It can fund your wilderness EMT. It can fund the S classes. It can fund the books that you need. It could, if you've already paid your tuition, you can use it to pay your rent while you're pursuing this sort of professional development. So that's one of the things that makes a Backbone scholarship different than other scholarships that are available within the wildland fire community. That's a piece that I'm really excited for. When I was in school, I was hotshotting and doing a quarter of school every year, just kind of chipping away at my degree. And I sure as hell could have used an extra $1,000 to pay my rent. And most scholarships limit it to paying tuition. I'm really excited about partnering with Mystery Ranch to administer the scholarship as part of the Backbone project. And so AWE will continue to do that moving forward. And we're also looking for other ways to fund these scholarships and the microgrants. We're always looking for ways to sort of grow these opportunities. But the scholarships seem to me like they could have really big impact on the fire community in terms of allowing people who aren't getting paid very well already the opportunity to pursue some professional development. So.
Oh yeah. And that's the critical thing too. I mean, these classes are not cheap. I mean, even if it's a professional development course, or even an NWCG course that you just pay for up front. I mean, that's what, $450 for a standardized course.
Yeah. Plus hotels and travel and food while you're there.
Oh my God. Yeah. Between you and Mystery Ranch and the Backbone series, between AWE and Mystery Ranch Backbone, I think you guys teamed up. I think you're the only folks in the game that are giving away so much opportunity to tell the story of wildland fire while also bettering yourself. And I think that's a huge thing for our community.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Again, Mystery Ranch has been a huge supporter and, I can't thank them enough for believing not only in AWE, but in the greater wildland fire community. They never ask of AWE for any recognition at all. I think, as long as we are doing the work, they are happy to be supporting it, and that's really cool. And, there are other, we have other contributors, some private donors and things like that, that help with these microgrants and scholarships, and also our other programming. I've bootstrapped the hell out of this nonprofit, when it comes down to it. I'm not paid, I've sort of pieced together just based on, when I first started out, it was Kickstarters and GoFundMes, and trying to build relationships. And now we're starting ramping up and looking at larger fundraising activities to support this work, because it's like I was mentioning before we started, our goal is to support wildland firefighters in the communities they serve. And that can mean a lot of different things. All of it takes money.
The stuff ain't free.
So, and it's hard when you think about the Smokey Generation, that project has resonated so deeply with the community. But it is not sexy. Oral history is not sexy. And so it's not something you can go to a corporate sponsor and say, hey, you want to support an oral history project?
And they look at
They're going to be like, what are you talking about? So being able to say, this is an organization that isn't just about oral history, and it's not just about storytelling and, just the sort of fuzzy, feel good, fluffy stuff. We're having real impact on the fire community. And we're moving into this phase where we're developing programming around having impact on the communities they serve. So the communities that they're living in, so that we can get people supporting wildland firefighters by creating defensible space, not by, bringing socks to fire camp during big fires.
Definitely don't need socks or water or Gatorade. We got all that stuff.
It's so generous of people to, think that. But at the same time, it's like move your wood pile away from your house.
Yes.
That's the most help that people can do in terms of community members to support wildland firefighters, in my mind, is just really like take action and change your behaviors around being prepared for wildfire, because the fires we're seeing are changing and becoming and becoming something that feels like it's less. There's more challenge around suppression these days, and so if we can go into a community and they're already prepared, that gives wildland firefighters less to have to worry about. So.
Oh yeah. That's another thing too. Is AWE is this it's like this living creature almost. I mean, it's morphing into several different things. It's not only just Smokey Generation, it's other community events or community involvement, like supporting wildland firefighters in the communities they serve and the communities impacted by wildfire, right?
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, what are some other these future projects that you're working on? Where is AWE going?
Yeah, that's a great question, and a question that I'm having a lot of fun sort of envisioning good answers to. So one of the things that we're launching this summer, it's called the Chainsaw Project. I have because I was a hotshot for so many years, and I worked on crews that were saw crews. I think when I was on Zigzag, we had 20 people on the crew and we carried 24 saws with us, so that anytime we weren't on a fire, we were cutting, doing project work. And so, I have a lot of saw experience. I have a lot of passion around teaching people how to run saws safely. I've taught chainsaw workshops for women for over a decade now. I'm a saw geek. I'll admit it.
Nerd.
I was a part of. Was that?
I'm like nerd.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
It's true.
No, it's cool.
So I'm really excited that Pacific Steel is partnering with us to help us launch the Chainsaw Project, where we'll go into communities and work at dealers, at municipal fire stations, and with fire safe councils to come in and provide community chainsaw orientation and training, as well as formal workshops. And eventually we'll get to a place where we'll be offering S212s, for example, and other modified versions of that for sort of different levels of people involved in the fuels management and fire world from a non-agency standpoint. My stance around chainsaws is, number one, it's an intimidating tool. If you haven't worked around them professionally, it's really intimidating, and it's not something you should learn how to do on YouTube.
No, YouTube University is not the answer. Not the answer to running a saw proficiently.
Yeah, it's not. And I think that when people see a woman or somebody who's, sort of not the typical chainsaw operator running a saw, all of a sudden it seems a little bit more accessible to people, less intimidating. And then when you can get those sort of safety things in place, people will feel empowered to go out and clear that defensible space around their homes. I do think that it's a barrier, that intimidation and that sort of not having comfort in that they can do something safely. So we're creating the Chainsaw Project to address that. I think that running chainsaws is a whole lot of fun too. So once people feel confident they can do it and feel empowered to do it, I think we'll see a little bit more leadership in communities to do that kind of defensible space management, wildfire preparedness, and resiliency work. So that's an exciting project. Pacific Steel in California, there's new regulations. Air quality regulations that basically everything under their 200 series is moving towards battery operated. So they're donating some battery operated saws, and for those of us that are used to running professional level saws, that it seems like a little bumblebee, kind of saw.
Oh, look at this Tonka toy. This is cute.
I know, it's so cute. But they're actually producing some really good tech to create higher powered battery saws, including one that can handle a 20-inch bar, which is pretty remarkable.
Pretty impressive.
So I know
actually, it's 20-inch bar on an electric saw.
It's basically a little farm boss saw, the 270 or 290 kind of level. But anyway, they're donating saws and PPE, so we'll be able to outfit people for workshops with saws and PPE. And there aren't any other nonprofit organizations out there that are doing this type of work, because insurance is astronomically high to do it. There's a huge amount of exposure, but I really feel that somebody needs to step up to the plate and get out into communities and teach these skills to community members. So AWE is going to do it. It's going to cost us a lot of money, and we'll have to do fundraising around just the insurance piece of it. But I think it's really, really important. And it's also something that wildland firefighters in our community can get involved with.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They can come out to these safety orientation days and help me and help, my other volunteers teach these skills to people and sort of connect with people in that way.
Well, I think the promotion of any fire-wise activity and building fire-wise and fire-resilient communities, I think that's a critical thing, because if you look at it, fire behavior is only trending one direction, right? And that's going up. Hotter, drier, longer wildland fire seasons, and more intense and more frequent, right? I mean, just like Prime and the Power Scene era, guess what? We're here. So the agencies can't do it all. And we also don't have enough personnel to throw at this. So, it's going to be up to the community.
That's so true. And I think one of the things that all fire agencies struggle with right now is sort of conveying the sense of shared responsibility with communities. We have created a social expectation that firefighters will come and save the day. And, that's just what community members expect. And we need to shift the conversation away from that and to a conversation of, we need to be stewards of our community. We have a shared responsibility to protect ourselves. And that may look like different things in different communities. But I think nonprofit organizations like AWE can help change those conversations bit by bit so that people take more responsibility on themselves. By doing so, they're supporting wildland firefighters.
Oh, absolutely.
In a really cool way. So
another thing, I think another conversation that needs to be had, and I think there's only one really very public person doing this, is harnessing that conversation around prescribed fire. And Amanda Monti is doing a great job of that. Their Life with Fire podcast. Yeah, absolutely. It's the sort of both prescribed fire and cultural burning, and also sort of issues of incorporating biodiversity restoration work into these things. These are all pieces of the fire challenge and the climate change, issues that have to be addressed. And Amanda is phenomenal. And she's a 2-time micro-grant winner. Look at that. Just doing amazing work. She was my second episode. Oh, nice. She's great. And there's also other people. I don't know if you've had the chance to talk with Sasha Berlin, for example. She's in the North Bay. Yeah, actually, we were supposed to record last week, but she got caught up doing prescribed fire. Prescribed fire, yeah. She had to cancel on me, so. Yeah, well, she's an absolute joy. She's a member of my board of directors. She's just a phenomenal person doing amazing work in the prescribed fire world. Those are the voices that we need to listen to, because they are moving and shaking in really, really cool ways. And there's people all over the world doing amazing work in prescribed fire. Certainly, those are elements that AWE, as we continue to grow and evolve, we'll get into.
the American Wildfire Experience, the name is challenging. Like wildfire it should be wildland fire. Should it be, should we not say firefighters? We should say firelighters, which kind of, from a public perspective, that sounds like arsonists. From a wildland fire perspective, it's like, oh yes, we should be putting more good fire on the ground.
Oh, absolutely.
These sort of, language issues are always a little bit challenging.
Well, everybody gets hung up on semantics too. I mean, I think the public perception of prescribed fire with recent events, I think that's one of those things where we need to be having that real conversation where like, hey, one, we can't control the weather. Two, sometimes shit happens. And three, we have historical crazy amounts of drought where we're getting holdovers from burn piles starting wildland fires from January. I mean, it's crazy right now, but these are the things that, we need to have a clearer conversation about. And like, yes, this is good. And unfortunately shit happens, but also we need to try and get ahead of the curve on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. One of the patterns I saw at the beginning as I was collecting histories and stories from the Smokey generation is there's a very clear mentality that comes when, I don't even want to say mistakes are made, but from when things are highly publicized and the public starts taking a critical view of our actions as firefighters, that impacts decision-making and people that lasts people's entire careers. Oh, yeah. So for example, what I'm seeing is that the controversy around the 88 Yellowstone fires, when I interviewed people who spent their rookie year or second year in fire on the 88 fires, they are still apprehensive about using fires for resource benefit, because of the critical look that the controversy that was around those fires from the let burn, kind of phrasing. I think we're going to see that kind of mentality and behavior from people who are growing up in the fire world right now because of these escaped burns that are converting into wildfires. And that is a little bit scary for me because we know scientifically and we know anecdotally that we need more prescribed fire. There's no question about it.
Yeah, fire is a natural part of the ecology. I mean, that's just what it is. Humanity would not have evolved without fire.
Yeah.
We need to learn to live with it.
Plain and simple. And not all fires are bad. Not all of one fire is bad. And that, those are the truths.
Well, it's complex and nuanced.
But I'm scared that, people will look at this situation where, two prescribed fires escaped and, had sort of catastrophic turns of events that turned into these mega fires.
Like I said, we can't control the weather though.
Yeah. I'm afraid people will forget that. And they don't want to be that person, that person who accidentally let a fire get outside the control lines or what have you. And so my hope is that people will say, nope, that, this was a tiny percentage of prescribed burning that we do that got out. And we're going to keep doing what we're doing because it's the best thing that we can do for the land. Yeah,
I think we do have a PR problem in that regard. I mean, if you look at escaped wildfires and the percentage of them that have gone catastrophic to where it's very like a hyper destructive wildfire, whereas an escaped prescribed that's gone to the wild. And it's been catastrophic, like some of the things we've seen recently. I mean, even some of the fires around here in Reno. I mean, I can't remember the one that happened. It was down in Washoe Valley. But anyways, do you remember what the fire was?
Tamarack? Was it the Tamarack?
No, it wasn't Tamarack. No. Tamarack was a natural start. But anyways, out of how many prescribed fires projects have we done where it was successful, comparatively speaking, to where we have that one that escapes to the wildland and goes beyond and becomes catastrophic or, threatens houses or even worse, destroys communities. I mean, the percentage has got to be extraordinarily low. We've been doing this for a long time. And I think that's one of those messages that needs to get out there. But
absolutely.
How do you do that? How do you have that conversation with the public when there's so many other organizations promoting distrust and public distrust with these wildland fire or these prescribed fire programs?
Well, I can tell you my opinion on that.
Feel free.
I did when I was, first building the Smokey Generation's Instagram and Facebook pages a couple of years ago. I did an analysis on the types of content that receive the highest level of engagement, and
probably the stuff that's negative.
All of them. Well, I'm very careful about the language that I use when I post anything on fire related social media. I'm not going to use emotionally charged language. I'm not, I'm very careful about the descriptive phrases that I use, because I think it's really important it's something that influences those public perceptions.
Yeah, clickbaity titles have no place in this conversation.
Say again?
I said clickbaity titles have no place in this conversation.
And so what I can say is that when I compared suppression content versus prescribed fire content, 100% suppression had much, much higher engagement, even though the prescribed fire content had beautiful imagery. But the thing that the prescribed fire content didn't have were people in that imagery. So I think if we're going to do a better job telling the story of prescribed fire and how important it is, we need to show the people that are doing it. And this is where these policies with agencies and social media posting come into conflict with that is, a lot of agencies don't want their employees posting things on social media. And so their employees, they're still posting on social media, but they're not posting pictures of their colleagues, or their crew buggy or what have you, so that it can still remain a little bit ambiguous. And I think the agencies need to encourage more social media posting around this good fire, around progressive land management policies and fire management policies, if we're going to get that level of engagement on social media, and from that, higher support from the public for these things. So I really do think that storytelling around these will help shift the perceptions that are kind of holding us back from advancing policy. I always say that perceptions drive politics, politics drives policy, policy dictates what we can or can't do on the ground. So if we're going to address our issues, our problems with climate and wildfire, we have to get back to those perceptions.
Oh, absolutely.
And storytelling is a key part of that. We're raised with stories. We emotionally connect with stories. It helps us create a shared experience with one another. And in the fire world, that's so critical, because there's so much out there that is negative. And we need more people in this conversation. We need those human stories.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. I mean, if you even look at it from an agency perspective, I mean, they got a PR problem. I mean, if you look at CAL FIRE, I mean, they're a PR agency with firefighting duties. I mean, their PR is on point, but everybody loves CAL FIRE, like public perception wise. Public perception and public sentiment is overall positive about CAL FIRE. Now, when you look at other agencies, not necessarily so.
Yeah.
So if we're to fold that into the, I guess, prescribed fire kind of context, I think we might be doing ourselves some favors. And the good thing we have people like you and Amanda and Sasha out there as well, telling the story.
Yeah. Yeah. And you, I mean, you're part of this conversation too. And you're part of putting in, really good content and challenging the current narrative. And the narrative needs to be challenged. There's no doubt about that.
It does. I mean, if you boil down my podcast, I'm just trying to make better firefighters and kind of like talking about the culture, much like what AWE is doing with Smokey Generation or Mystery Ranch with the Backbone series. It's all pretty much the same, but challenging the status quo and making it better for future generations of firefighters. I mean, that's the job of any leader, right? Is to build upon that foundation that your leadership gave you, so the next generation can build upon that and make it better, right? We need more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we're doing at AWE, we're just starting this, is creating a foundation for international relationships and exchanges. So right now I'm hosting this amazing firefighter.
Kind of like Trex on steroids.
One more time?
Kind of like Trex on steroids.
Yeah. Yeah. There's great tie-ins to treks. So I'm hosting a firefighter from South Africa named Kylie Paul. And I just met her recently at the Climate Wildfire Conference and was super impressed and invited her to come stay. She's volunteering with AWE for a couple of weeks, helping us launch our new website and our new fundraising campaign. We've had lots of great conversations over drinks at night about the situation in South Africa and the wildland fire world there. And they, everywhere around the world, we're facing similar situations, conversations about prescribed fire, the absolute desperate need to put more fire in the ground. And how that sort of compares to the suppressionist, drive and mentality. And, my hope is that AWE can build opportunities for other people like Kylie to come to the U.S. and not only share the information and knowledge that they've gained within their own fire sort of realm, but also take some of what we know back to their countries. And stay tuned. I think we're going to be able to create some really good opportunities for some training and cultural exchange to happen in the greater fire world. For sure.
It's an important conversation to have. I mean, that's that whole tangential learning opportunity, right? I mean, it's just like if you were to come out of fire into the private sector, a bunch of stuff that you learned in fire can apply to the private sector. But even within fire, I mean, you can be completely from a different other culture, another part of the world, come to here or us go to there, and we can all learn something from each other.
Yeah. And so we create a more inclusive fire community, which is, super, super needed. Different perspective and representation. Those are important things. And something I think that our fire community has struggled with sort of finding our way forward. So when you're able to sort of bring people in from other cultures and communities and ways of seeing things and ways of doing, then all of a sudden our minds sort of expand a little bit. We were watching a documentary on fire in South Africa last night, and I was like, what's the deal with the flappers?
Hey man, in the basin flappers are gold.
I learned a lot. I'm not on the fire line anymore, but she was describing the best techniques for running a flapper, and things that I wouldn't have thought about. And, similarly, like they don't run chainsaws in South Africa.
Really?
And that's a big barrier. Not all of the crew, like crews don't run with chainsaws. I'm sure they have some chainsaws that they use on fires, but crews don't run with chainsaws. And so, that's something that we talked about. She's going to have a W Tracks in South Africa in March. And so I will do my best to come over and provide some chainsaw training for them and sort of open up that option for fire suppression. And so there's, those sorts of knowledge exchanges that can happen not only in formal ways like a W Tracks or a Tracks, but also informal ways just by getting a bunch of people together, drinking beer and talking about the way they do things back home.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing that I'm going to say that I've learned probably more about fire, wildland fire, but just by being a facilitator for this podcast, right, than I ever have in any formalized training or S course or any of that stuff. I mean, I've learned more about fire through exchanges like this with you and I. And
me too.
I think that if people were to kind of, like you say, open up and expand their horizons a little bit by going to AWE or going to Life with Fire or any of those other places like Mystery Ranch with the Backbone series, I think it's going to tell a larger thing and you're going to learn something.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Or just having beer.
Absolutely. And if that's not your thing, just taking the time and talking to the salty old dogs on the line, getting their story. Like if you don't want to go into the Smokey Generation, I totally get it. But if you're standing next to somebody who's been in fire for 50 years, pick their brain. Oh yeah. Get their stories, buy them the beer at the bar, and whatever it is, try and glean as much information. There's so many people with incredible knowledge out there. It's just a matter of tapping into it.
Oh yeah. And there's that oral history that project that we're talking about right there. Just couldn't have surmised it better right there.
Yeah. Stephen Pine has this great quote that is, essentially like storytelling originated around a fire.
That's powerful.
And there are no better narrators than firefighters to talk about fire. So, like I said, tap into that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But speaking of AWE, we have our announcements for the 2022 winners of the AWE.
Yeah.
What is up? We got this stuff. I know you have time constraints too, and we're already rolling over. So I'm trying to
thank you.
Off. I know you gotta go. So apologies.
Yeah, I can do a little bit longer, but thank you so much for this opportunity. So I have a list of 14. We're issuing 14 microgrants this year.
Ooh, here we go.
So I'm just going to run through them if it's okay.
Yeah. Are you going to describe a little bit about their project and what they've done?
Yeah, a little bit. But first I'll talk about sort of the microgrants themselves. So, we define digital storytelling as the process of coupling personal stories with broader public issues like wildland fire, and leveraging digital technology to do that, to showcase the stories and the people telling the stories. And I consider it to be like an integral part of community building. So it's just, digital storytelling in our world, in our digital world is so key to educating people and helping them understand this issue of wildland fire. So we encourage people to develop project concepts and submit an application to achieve that concept, and produce some sort of digital content, over the course of their project. That content can live wherever. It can live on your Instagram account. It can live on your blog. It can live as long as it's digital and can be shared. We encourage you to apply. And then what we do is when we announce the recipients, we sort of shine a light. We illuminate what you're doing and who you are. And moving forward, we'll showcase these projects over the years. Aside from that, there aren't any limitations. Come up with a cool concept from a unique perspective about a story you want to share, somehow relating to wildland fire, and we'll kick you $500 if you're selected. The review process, I have a selection committee. I initially sort through the applications, make sure people follow, check the boxes and submit what they need to submit. And then I remove names and demographic information and that sort of thing. So it's a semi-blind review, and it's semi because people, as part of the application process, will list their Instagram accounts or Facebook accounts or what have you. So at some point, sort of in the review process, we may be able to identify who you are, because we're going to go look at your work already.
Yeah,
and most people have a selfie, so it's but we try and remove as much bias as we can from the review process. And we have reviewers that are in the wildland fire community and outside of the wildland fire community who are just, creatives themselves. And then, so we go through and we score individually. I combine those scores, and then people who meet the threshold on up are our selectees for the year. The cool part of that sort of process is it cheeks out in really interesting ways. This year we have a musician that we're sponsoring for the first time,
really?
Which is, really exciting. The way you tell a story there's so many shapes and forms that stories can take. So we also have a comic book, somebody who's going to be creating a comic book. It's really cool.
Awesome.
So we've sort of morphed from supporting projects that are videography or photography based to all sorts of different storytelling. Really exciting about that. About that. Okay, so this is in no particular order. So we have recipients from Canada. One of the cool things this year is that we have partners that put projects together. So this is a partnership. Kelly Bouchard and Ryan Skinner from Canada. They are doing a project called After the War, Wildfire as a Renewing Force. And they are revisiting a site of one of the largest fires in BC's recorded history, and basically photographing and writing about these different sites that were pivotal in the fire suppression piece of it. So like the pump sites, containment lines, hose trails, things like that. And they're going to create a more nuanced view through photography and writing about the wildfire and how it's recovered, how it's both destructive and a sort of transformative renewal process.
Nice.
So it's really interesting. Amory Abbott and Liz Tuhi Weiss. I'm going to butcher some of these names and I'll just apologize to the recipients. I'm so sorry. Also from Canada, they have a really cool website called Fire Season. And they are going to be doing visual art, photography, prose, academic writing, all serving to kind of become an introductory discussion on the ecology, industrial, historical, and psychological complexities of wildland fire. Visit their website. It's super cool.
Nice.
Harrison Rain.
Hey, Harrison. Yeah. We were supposed to interview last week when I had some time off, but I forgot what happened. Something happened. Oh, yeah. I had to take care of something, personal matter, and I just had to cancel on him. So Harrison, if you're listening to this, dude, I'm sorry. Things got wildly out of hand.
I'm glad you're going to talk to him. He has traveled the world. Basically he's a fire nomad. And he is going to be putting together basically a photo book using photography from a ton of different photographers all over the world. Argentina, Canada, the US, Spain, South Africa, photographs and written testimonies about that. So I'm really excited to see what comes of that. Nice. Jillian Moore from the US on a roll, Wildland compositions from a season on the road. They are going to document the season roll by roll through painting, drawing, collage, written word, and mixed media compositions. Super cool art coming out of that project. Tara Fondriest. Oh man, sorry. Butchered that.
I'm horrible with names too. So
this is one of the coolest non-fire practitioner projects that I've heard, and it's called A Conversation with Dad. And during the course of one of her husband's fire assignments this summer, each member of their family, her, him, and their two children, ages 8 and 11, will take a few photos and videos per day and write a little something to one another from afar, keeping a recorded dialogue of moments from home and those from the fire line, all directed towards each other. And then they're going to put them together into a digital story. Aww. So we're getting perspectives from family back home and how that relates to what's happening on the fire line. It's really interesting perspective.
I can't wait for that one to be released, because I mean, having a family and then like, I couldn't imagine the home life, because it's oftentimes the family that bears the burden of fire season, especially when the significant other is on the line for so long. Yeah, that's going to be a good one. Yeah, totally.
Michael Horn from the US, their project is called Don't Call Me a Hero.
I like it.
So I like it. It's going to document long-term mental health impacts on wildland firefighters and on other mental health implications. And the goal is to enlighten the general population on the hidden risks of fighting fire and generate support around legislation and that sort of thing. So obviously a very good topic to tackle. Nicholas Bowling from the US, One Foot in the Black is the name of the project. And it's the story of a crew. Basically, they're kind of looking at like, there's stories that are difficult to share with others when they weren't there with you. You know what it's like coming off the fire line. Like people who haven't been there don't quite get it. They may try really hard, but when you come home after a season, your situational awareness is so high, you like paying attention to the wind direction and the branches of the tree above you. And meanwhile, your mom's talking about her trip to Target. There's this disconnect. But the project is going to basically be examining like how to forge alongside and sort of share common struggles in an interesting way. Anyway, there's more to it, but it's exciting. Sylvie Fodgstick from Canada. Oh man. Understory of Light is the name of the project. They're going to be looking at vegetative research, crew dynamics, fireline tactics, evolving management practices, and sort of like taking a creative look at all of these sort of aspects of fire management together and creating a portfolio of images around that. So super cool. Cameron Joseph Royce, still standing. This is the musician. The project, he says, the project that I'm working on is a folk rock album showing my journey with wildfire over the past few years. It's a journey through destruction and heartbreak to eventual love and healing. I cannot wait to be able to share one of his recordings.
It's got like a Bruce Springsteen vibe to it.
Yeah, I just, it's exciting to be able to support a musician as part of this process.
That's so unique. I didn't, that just goes to show like how unique our culture is. The wildland fire culture is. I mean, a musician was selected for one of the Smokey Generation grants, and that just goes to show like you can do anything as long as you're telling the story of wildland fire. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, in a compelling way from a unique perspective. Yeah, I love it.
I love it.
Okay, Eric Abramson, First Nation and Fire. They're creating an ongoing series focusing on Indigenous people in various positions and projects with a long-term goal of developing a feature-length documentary on the subject.
Yes.
So exploring traditional wisdom mixed with modern techniques. Super cool project.
Love it.
Excited about that. John Knutson, Queerness and Fire, an illustrated tale. So they're going to be sharing personal experience of being queer in fire and bringing them to life through a series of illustrations in exploring this intersectional space, aiming to capture the beautiful, honest moments, the humor, the difficult conversations, the internal dialogues, the moments where we rise to meet the occasion, as well as moments where we fall short. So super happy to be able to have, some of these inclusive conversations represented.
That's another thing too. It's like we always, from a culture perspective, I guess, or like a wildland fire perspective, oftentimes we focus on a lot of conversations around women in fire, right? But we often underrepresent the LGBTQ and minority community. And I think that's the topic that's a conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Amanda is another great person that's having these conversations.
Oh yeah. Hers and Bobby.
Yeah. When we had somebody, one of our microgrants last winter sort of come out as trans during their project, and it's not a conversation that can be ignored anymore. And I think that these microgrants can present a really great opportunity for somebody to share their personal story and sort of like say, hey, see, we're here, and encourage other people to share their own stories too. Yeah.
I like it.
Okay, so Brandon Robles from the US. I love the title of this. It's We Move Mountains with Spoons. And they're working on a weekly comic book. Wanted to start this project to shed light on the hardships we all face doing what we love. I've never truly loved a job like I do this one, and it's shown me what the true meaning of compassion is. Oh, yeah. And so he's going to be exploring some of those themes in his comic book.
Look at that, another one that's unique, a comic book.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then the last two that I want to share are our Impact Awards. So we have 2 Impact Awards that are created because they have potential to have really strong impact. There she is. The first is our Alumni Impact Award. And it's somebody who's received a grant in the past. We had a few alumni apply for the Impact Award this year. I wish we had more funds because I would select every single one of them. But our Alumni Impact Award this year is Fanny Tricone. She's from Belize, and for her original grant, she created this maybe 2.5-minute video called The Fire Paradox, and it's one of the most beautiful short films I've seen on fire. Our new website, it's not quite launched yet, but it will be launched within the next couple of weeks. We'll showcase this. You can go visit it there, but it is just stunningly beautiful. Her project is called Befriending Fire in the Belizean Savannas. And she wants to create a video to tell the story of the creation of fire working groups in Belize from passionate community members and local actors who understand that to reduce the risks and impacts of wildfires they're facing, working as a team, supporting one another, understanding and befriending fire is crucial to protecting their homes, livelihoods, and ecosystems. So this is the type of project that really embodies what AWE is about.
Nice. And it's called the Fire Paradox.
I have no doubt it's just going to be another beautiful story out there. And then lastly, I'm very excited to share our other Impact Award. This one focuses on mental health. And so excited to announce that the Anchor Point podcast, that you are the recipients of this year's Impact Award. And, congratulations on that. We really do stand behind the work that you're doing and the stories that you're sharing and sort of like, drawing out of this fire community. So thank you so much for your work and congratulations.
Thank you, Bethany. I appreciate it. And it's wildly ambitious. Look at my face is turned. I'm like blushing right now. But yeah, it's definitely a unique, I'm very humbled to receive that award. So thank you so much. And, but that's another thing too, is like I always say at the beginning of my podcast, like, oh yeah, this episode is brought to you by, Bethany at the Smokey Generation, aka Wildfire Experience, the AWE. Right. And, the funny thing is that we've never had an agreement. We've never had sponsorship or mutual interest. The thing is I always believed in your project. And that's why I say that, this is supported or brought to you by the American Wildfire Experience. So I definitely believe in what you're doing. And yeah, it's awesome. And thank you for what you're doing. It's cool.
Well, thank you for helping spread the word about what we're doing and supporting us for so long. It's that having you sort of share with your community that we are out there even, and then encourage people to go check out the stories on the Smokey Generation and check out the micro-grants and the backbone scholarships and the other work that we're doing with AWE. That's huge for us. We are a small organization and it's massive, but, just kicking back to the purpose of the Impact Award, this award is funded by my mentor and his wife, Peter and Jane Carpenter. And it's in honor of a friend of theirs who struggled with mental health issues after particularly that were sort of like triggered by a fire. And he never was able to heal from the trauma that he experienced and ended up taking his life. And, the mental health aspect of the wildland fire community, this is sort of the I know there's a lot of organizations that are tackling the issue right now, and we really want to support those efforts. But I think that the piece that we can support is by offering this Impact Award for people that are shining a light on this issue. And you do that very, very well in your podcast. And we're excited to illuminate that work. You obviously have a ton of compassion and investment in making sure that our wildland fire community has the ability to maintain good mental health and get the care that they need. And that's incredibly important and very, very admirable. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I think that, there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of organizations out there that are tackling the subject. And, kind of like providing resources, but it seems that a lot of these organizations this is not a negative slight or anything like that, but a lot of these organizations out there, they're very reactionary and they come to your rescue when you need that help. And I think that a lot of people aren't having the conversation on the forefront and tackling it up front and having that conversation, letting people know that it's okay to have these conversations. And I saw a niche and I tried to fill it the best I could. So it's not me. I mean, it's all the guests that had the courage to come on the show, the Anchor Point podcast, and actually have those real conversations. And I think that's the thing that is beneficial, and it's like proactive, I guess you could say. So I'm very passionate about it. I've had a couple of friends, unfortunately, leave this world due to suicide, and they're primarily wildland firefighters. And I just want to try and prevent that in the future. And I think that's one of my driving missions. So, yeah,
I have no doubt that you'll succeed in having great impact in that regard. Well, I can tell it is a big driver, and so you're not gonna abandon that.
Definitely not. And I'm trying not to hammer down on it so much and like make it a topic of conversation on every episode. But the funny thing about that is it always comes up. And it's usually not me that cues the guests. It's usually brought up by the guests themselves on their own without any cueing or anything like that. So obviously that tells me that there is a very large problem with the mental health issues in wildland fire. And I think we need to get ahead of the curve and try and be preventative with it. Yeah,
absolutely. That's my experience as well with the Smokey Generation. I'd say at least 10, maybe even 15% of the people that I've interviewed have ended up in tears because they've experienced severe trauma, losing friends on the fire line and or deploying fire shelters, or just the cumulative stress and the wear and tear that takes, and being away from family and all of it. We know these things. But some of the interviews that I've done are with people that are sharing these traumas that they experienced 40, 50, 60 years old in some cases, or 60 years ago in some cases, that they've never dealt with. And they end up in tears recounting these stories because it resurfaces in unexpected time. And that's PTSD, right? Mm-hmm. And so even those of us that have experienced, maybe haven't experienced, I honestly, I don't know many wildland firefighters who've spent more than a couple of years on the line without seeing a helicopter accident or a car accident or some sort of, severe trauma that we just sort of brush off.
Kind of normalize it.
Yeah, we normalize it. And, but I guarantee those things are going to, bubble to the surface 60 years from now if we don't deal with them now. So I agree. Yeah.
And that's the thing is, like, I think it's even the complex PTSD or PTSI. PTSD is like an older term. It's PTSI's post-traumatic stress injury. And that could be, it's one of those things where like you can have an initial one-time event that triggers it or puts you into that state, that PTSI state, or you can have a death by a million cuts. And I hate using that saying, but those 1,000 cuts and those micro traumas that eventually boil up into something that's bigger and complex, PTSI as well. And it's definitely one of those things. I mean, we normalize trauma. I mean, even just the repeated cruising through communities that have been burnt to the ground, or, seeing the families that are affected over and over and over again, or the little traumas of like re-engaging with your family. I mean, that all boils up. And we just normalize it and bury it. So, Well, thank you again for, telling these stories and helping others to tell these stories. I do believe in the power of story, and that's why you're our Impact Award winner this year. It's because you're doing such a good job of it, and we want to support you in that. Oh, it's not going to stop. And that's for sure. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm very honored to be the recipient of the Impact Award this year for 2022. Definitely appreciate it. And one thing I do want to do is also, I know there's a $500 grant associated with winning that award. However, I would like to donate it to another awardee if we can do that.
Thank you.
So
yeah, thank you.
Definitely want to do that.
Okay. We can make that happen.
Awesome. So select another awardee.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. I think, And also, I would just encourage anyone in the fire world who appreciates the work that's being done out in the community to tell the story of wildland fire and wildland firefighters to contribute to the micro-grant, in the future, for sure. I would love to see more community members saying, yeah, this is important to us. We need our stories being told and supporting one another. This is a restricted fund. So if you donate to the micro-grants, they go to micro-grants. That's an important piece of this, I think, too. So,
well, it wouldn't be
thank you.
The Smokey Generation without the actual storytelling component.
Right.
It's definitely pivotal that we have that. So, and hopefully, we can ramp that up and make it bigger, better, faster, and stronger, and get more recipients out there. And it's definitely cool to see the unique stories this year, and even some people that are non-fire. Well, kind of related to fire, but
related to,
but not actual firefighters themselves.
We initially started them to be restricted to wildland firefighters, and then we decided move to wildland fire practitioners because there are other people in the fire world that don't consider themselves to be firefighters. And now it's, if you have a story that if you have a personal firsthand experience with wildland fire, then you're welcome to apply. Because it's important to see it from all sides. For sure.
What about the people that have just been affected by fire?
Yeah, I would
maybe a future project.
I reached out to a couple of people that there's a project called the Dixie Fire Stories Project that is on Facebook that's just coming out from the Dixie fire last year. And it's a remarkable community-driven storytelling project talking about impacts and recovery. They just received a large amount of funding. And so they didn't apply. They felt like they had what they needed. But I would love to see that. I would love to see applications, and I would highly encourage applications around recovery. And the other side, preparedness and prescribed fire and fire, fire flocks, like grazing, the grazing communities that are doing using sheep and goats to create defensible space. I mean, there's some pretty unique stories around that. And I think those are aspects of fire that we don't get to hear about a lot. And I think it would be really interesting for people to understand them. And I always anticipate having a very solid suppression focused segment of the micro-grant recipients. I think that's a core of what AWE is about and who we are as a fire community. But I do think these sort of peripheral things that are going on in the fire world need to be illuminated as well.
Oh yeah. And the story of wildland fire is much more than just suppression alone.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
yeah.
I appreciate you being on the show today. And and once again, I'm honored to be the recipient of the Impact Award this year in 2022. As far as future applicants, where can they go for applying? And
thank you.
Get the word out there.
Yeah. So we are very close to launching our new website. You can still go to wildfire-experience.org. But we will be launching the new one, and we'll have the new grant recipients on it when we do, along with some of our other soon to be announced initiatives.
I know you can't talk about all of them, but I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, not quite yet, but I'd love to come back.
You'll be here.
And then also we have 2 social media accounts, the Smokey Generation on both Instagram and social media. Just know that's run by AWE. But we try and incorporate the storytelling a little bit more heavily on that side. And then wildfire.experience on Instagram is the official nonprofit. We just started that, I think, just last year. And we'll be growing it up and expanding it in the coming months. So following those would be great. As you know, the more social engagement that we can have, the more sort of higher profile we become for corporate sponsors. And as a nonprofit, we want to have that visibility and be able to go after companies and organizations and say, hey, you can support AWE. And we'll also, share with our community what you're doing. And so that's, a benefit of going in and following us is not only do you get the cool storytelling, but you're also helping the organization just by simply engaging with us. So those are the best places. And then I'm available on email, Bethany at wildfire-experience.org. Our microgrants are, the application process opens in the spring every year. So look for the application to open sometime in April, typically. And then the Backbone scholarships, we have a rolling application process. And we review applications on May 30th and November 31st. So our cutoff was just a few weeks ago. Yeah. But I'd really encourage people as they're going through their fire season, when you have time to apply, because November is going to come around real quick and there might still be fires happening. The application process is pretty simple, but you do have to write an essay for the Backbone series.
Don't write it in crayon.
Yeah. Do it in your, whatever, your notebook in your tent, whatever it takes. But I just really encourage you to apply to that. If you have any interest in pursuing professional development, we really want to support people. So again, that's on our website, and our other initiatives will have opportunities to get involved with too. So we'll check it out, and just be aware that the current website isn't awesome, but we're about to launch a really good one.
It's getting there. I'm excited to see the new website. That's for sure. And I think between you and Mystery Ranch, I think your involvement with bettering the fire community, both professionally and storytelling perspectives, I think that's huge. And I greatly appreciate what you're doing. I believe in what you guys are doing. So
really appreciate it. Yeah. Appreciate your support and appreciate the opportunity to share about what we're doing.
I've been trying to interview you for like 3 years.
I'm sorry.
Ships passing in.
I'm sorry. Moving to Spain
that whole
at the start of COVID kind of threw that off, but I'm back.
She's back. But so at the end of the show, I always give an opportunity to have you or for you to give. Geez, I can't talk today for some reason. I think I've had probably way too much coffee today. I give the opportunity for you to give shout outs to homies, heroes, mentors. Who do you got for us?
Yeah, thank you. I do want to give a shout out to Mystery Ranch and Water Rocks again, because their support has just been astronomical in terms of supporting these microgrants and oral history projects and so on. I have to give a shout out to Peter Carpenter, who's my mentor and a friend, and is the smoke jumper that was jumping in 59, 60, and 61. He's 83 years old and just a wealth of knowledge, and has opened up his I'm sitting at his home right now in Kybers, California, just opened up his home and his heart to me and to others, and is really both a mentor and a hero in my mind. Phenomenal story, and phenomenal person. And then, I wouldn't be here today if my first hotshot suit, Gina Pathke, didn't take a chance on me. I had done some trail work and heard about hotshots and thought, I want to be a hotshot. And I shotgun blasted my application out. This was in the late 90s. And she called me up and she said, your application is in my no pile, but somebody just bailed. So come down and interview and tell me what you're about. And I came down and I interviewed, and she said, okay, if you can pass the run, it was a 1.5 mile run at the time, we'll hire you. And I failed by just a few seconds. I hadn't run 1.5 miles since high school. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And she said, okay, come down Sunday night, The crew starts Monday morning. We'll have somebody pace you. And if you can pass, you're hired. And somebody paced me and I passed no problem. And she let me on a hotshot crew in the late 90s without any fire experience and gave me that opportunity. And I was as green as they come. And so many just mortifying memories of, experiences this first few months. But she put a drip torch in my hand for the first time, and I got fire in my blood.
Is that where you got the bug, the fire bug?
Yeah, that chance that she took on this random kid from Olympia, Washington, who had never seen a forest fire in her life, and gave her a chance to be a part of a hotshot crew. I went on to be a hotshot for 6 years, and it transformed my life. And, and because of that opportunity that she gave me, that extra little chance, because she saw some sort of potential in me, I'm here today, with this organization that I see having really cool impact for the wildland fire community throughout the world. And it's all because of her. Awesome. I would say that's my biggest shout out, is Gina for taking a chance on this skinny little redheaded chick from Olympia. So, yeah.
Oh man. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny how we always have that story about who got us into fire. Everybody does, that first experience with fire. It's awesome.
I raised my hand the first day because I'd sat through hours of, training. And I said, "What is the black?"
Everybody turns around and looks at you.
That was hours into the first day. And they're like, "Who the fuck is she?" And once I figured out what was going on, I told myself, if I ever come in last on a hike, I'll quit, because I didn't want to be the weakest link.
Yeah.
And thankfully that year, until I, got up to speed, somebody had either drank too much the night before or came in after eating too big of a breakfast and would puke. And I never came in last. I came in second to last because somebody got sick. And that gave me enough time to figure out what the hell was going on. And from that point forward, I could hang. But, just a bumpy, rough start. But man, I fell in love with it. And, 3 years later, I was on a SAW team. It's just, it was just that moment, that chance, and a drip torch in my hand, and it's all over for me.
It's kind of funny, those little mountains that we conquer to, eventually conquer the Everest of whatever it is in front of you. That's your challenge, your unique, your hero's journey or whatever. It's kind of funny. Those little wins, those little victories. Yeah. They're important.
It's important. Yeah. Important to celebrate too.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Well, Bethany.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Appreciate you being on the show, and thank you so much. I appreciate everything you're doing. It's huge. And I think, I think it's going to turn into, it's growing every year. That's what I've noticed, is it's growing into this huge multi-headed organization of specializing in several different areas of fire, and the interconnectedness between wildfire suppression, prescribed fire, firewise communities, defensible space, stuff like that. And it's cool to see this organization of yours develop and blossom into this hydra that's so important and pivotal. It's like a cornerstone of the community, right? It's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It's a passion project for sure. And I'm excited to see where it goes.
Well, keep that passion alive. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Stay safe out there. Take care. And boom, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of the Anchor Point Podcast is in the books with my good friend, Bethany Hanna. Bethany, thank you so much for coming on the show and telling us a little bit of background and history with the Smokey Generation, AWE, and where you plan on going. Furthermore, congratulations to all the 2022 Smokey Generation AWE Micro-Grant recipients. There's some epic projects out there, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what comes down the line as far as those projects go. It's definitely some interesting stuff. We got musicians, we even got a comic book, which is pretty damn cool, but I'm really especially interested in that family perspective piece. That is going to be a jam. That's going to be a hitter for sure. And once again, I would like to thank the Smokey Generation and Bethany over there for granting me the honor and awarding me the Anchor Point Podcast, the 2022 Impact Award for the category of mental health. I'm definitely honored and I'm definitely appreciative of that. So thank you so much. Bethany, you guys, your organization, you guys are going big places, and I can't wait to see what's in the future. With that being said, hope all is well. Hope everybody out there is doing well. And last but not least, special shout out to our supporters and sponsors. We've got Mystery Ranch, built for the mission. They make arguably the best damn packs in the fire game, and they also support you in the field with the Mystery Ranch Backbone Series scholarships. So go over to www.mysteryranch.com and check it out. We've got the Ass Movement. It's a funny name, but they are serious about stewardship. I cannot talk today. What is wrong with me? They're serious about stewardships. Go over to www.thefirewild.com and check out the Ass Movement for all your poo-bearing propaganda. We've got Hotshot Brewery, kick-ass coffee for kick-ass cause, and a portion of the proceeds will always go back to the Wildland Firefighter Foundation. So go over to www.hotshotbrewing.com to get all of your coffee brewing essentials. Now, last but not least, we have the AWE. Now, they are not actually a sponsor of the show. However, I believe in their project and what they're doing. Not once have they paid me. Not once are they going to ever pay me. However, I believe in what they're doing. So go over to American Wildfire Experience. Go over to www.wildfireexperience.org and check out the Smokey Generation. And congratulations once again to all the recipients of the micro-grant winners this year. I'm excited to see your projects. Bethany, you have a kick-ass organization over there. Keep it up. Y'all know the drill. Stay safe, stay savage. Peace.